Namaste, Dr. Bhushan Patwardhan. It's a great pleasure to have you here with us today in the context of the fifth CII Global Ayush Summit. What is interesting, Dr. Bhushan, is that the first time you got all the Ayush streams of medicine under one umbrella. But of course, this is one session probably which is an umbrella session, my session with you, which will cover all the different segments. So with that, let me begin with my let's go back to the most hot topic of today, which is, COVID and Ayush interventions in the context of COVID. Now, let me first of all, summarize some data for the benefit of the listeners. 126 studies, out of which 22 are preclinical studies, 42 prophylaxis, 40 treatment studies, and about 66 studies in Ayurveda, 26 in homeopathy, so on. So between the types of study and the streams of study, there are totally about 126. Now, what I would like to ask you, Dr. Bhushan, is when you look at today, 1 year for 2 months from the time that, in March, when you took up the task as the chairman of the interdisciplinary task force, what is it that you're looking back? First of all, what can we infer today? There is a lot of publishing, articles coming out in terms of evidence coming. But how would you summarize the outcomes of what we've done over the last 1 year? That's part one of my question.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rajiv. And first, let me compliment CII for bringing the entire Ayush under one roof and talking about the whole sector. And the global conference on Ayush, which you have organized, I'm sure it will help people and business both, to steer through these difficult times. Last April, and you are part of that task force, we started discussing about it. You will remember that the situation was very different, hardly anyone was able to really give serious ears to us. And there was some kind of I would say, a monopoly of treatment, and people were not even willing to accept that there can be something which will be useful, which will be safe, which will be affordable, which people also want. So we started at very, very difficult times. And when the task force started, as you know, we reached out to several people. So the whole constitution of task force, if you look at, we have people coming from modern medicine, modern science, biology, and of course of medicine, policymakers, planners, everything. And then we quickly started working on it. The first thing we did was talk to CSIR, because CSIR is one of the largest scientific network of our country, and we brought them on board. So both the Secretary Ayush, Vaidya Rajesh Kotecha, and Director General CSIR, Dr. Shekhar Mande, both of them had serious discussion, and this emerged out of it. And three major, you have already done my job a little easy by giving the basic statistics, how many studies have been done. So our objective really was to first bring visibility to what is happening in Ayush. Second, to build in some kind of a credibility so that people start looking at us more seriously. And third thing, try to find out gaps in the current system, where support is necessary, and focus more on that. Because we know that the critical care for corona will require highly so we are not competing there. So we identified which are the areas. So we focused on prophylaxis. And let me tell you, there are a major 2 points, around which the entire corona management revolves. And their first is inflammation, and second is immunity. So we thought of focusing on these. So if you look at our clinical trials or even our preclinical studies, most of them are addressing these areas, and the outcome, what you're asking for, frankly, at that time we had very modest objective. that first to get some kind of recognition, and then start showing by doing, that these are the areas where we can contribute. Thank you.
So I think, I mean, you have really told that showing by doing, and I can really imagine at that time people were completely in shock. And if I remember right, you were very keen that you were wanted some studies which would be going through, which would be allowed by the system to be undertaken, because we are not given access to patients. So there was a huge challenge in being able to design the trials possibly. So two parts here. A lot of the studies have been add-on trials. Although we say there are 40 interventions, but a big chunk of them are add-on trials. So in recent times, maybe there are some standalone interventions also which have come. So without getting into the, Guduchi, Chyawanprash, that set of trials, do you, I mean, that in addition to that, any proprietary medicines, whether it is Ayush 64, would you like to comment on the quality of evidence that has emerged on standalone interventions for Ayush in COVID care?
Yeah, no, you are right. Majority of the studies are actually kind of add-on studies. And obviously, because the COVID treatment, as I mentioned, was highly, I would say, protected, and for obvious reasons, the access to patient was a bigger problem. And so you'll see that most of our studies which we have designed are in collaboration with modern medicine centers, most of them. And especially the add-on studies, obviously they have to be undertaken at hospitals which are COVID recognized hospitals. So those studies have happened in these hospitals. But at the same time, I would say that typical intervention studies, as of now, I remember about 50 intervention studies are there. Out of 50 intervention studies, 30 are randomized controlled clinical trials.
Okay.
So that shows that the rigor of the trial which we are talking, and about 42 studies are in prophylaxis, because as you know, prophylaxis, Ayurveda or Ayush, I would say, has a stronger ground, and out of 42 studies, 22 studies are randomized controlled clinical trials. And at that time, we had to really fight, to get started. And we hypothesized at that time, based on our own data, that instead of giving hydroxychloroquine, which is a doubtful drug, which is not even accepted at a global level, and which is proven to be not effective by the WHO trial, solidarity trial,
Yes.
why we are insisting to give it to them rather than that, Guduchi, Ashwagandha, and several other which are going to be very, very safe prophylactic agents. But still, I'm not going to go in details of it, but because of the intervention of the ministry and convergence of both three ministries actually. So this became an inter-ministerial trial, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare.
Which is the third ministry?
Third ministry of Ministry of Science and Technology, through which CSIR came in. So Science and Technology Ministry, Health Ministry, and Ayush Ministry together decided to move in this direction. And the first randomized controlled, robust, statistically powered study for one-to-one comparison, head-on comparison with ashwagandha and hydroxychloroquine was planned. Multicentric trial, this was the protocol. Obviously, I must tell you that all the protocols, almost all the protocols are registered at CTRI. Almost all the protocols follow the general good clinical practices guidelines. Ministry has established data safety monitoring board, which is monitoring these trials. And in some studies, especially studies which are done in collaboration with CSIR, we have undertaken help of CROs also. So this has been done in extremely professional manner with external audits also in place. Independent auditors are also evaluating what are we doing, So all this is going to help us in getting into good quality publications in good journals. So this study, I must tell you that we have just concluded, and I am happy to give you highlights of this study, which was done in comparison with hydroxychloroquine. we have shown that ashwagandha undoubtedly, based on the data, undoubtedly emerged out as a safer option for prophylaxis of COVID-19. Details of this studies very soon you will be able to see, and I hope by next week we'll be able to deposit our data in medical archives, very soon.
Excellent. So, going from prophylaxis now into interventions for asymptomatic mild moderate conditions. Now, you just mentioned about the fact that the visibility, credibility, focus, and then looking in the focus area, you looked at in the context of prophylaxis also inflammation and immunity. Now, I want to bring in the context of the ITRC, the Interdisciplinary Tech Review Committee, Dr. Bhushan, right? Which is an excellent step. And I think all the steps that you've also undertaken where you told, got an independent committee to look at the quality of data and, I'll come to the mentoring part separately. But when you look at that, for example, two products which have got recent approval. One is Coroquil Zinc from the Delhi University of the Pharmaceuticals Department of Delhi University, right? They have come out recently with an announcement that their product has been approved to show reduction of viral load. That is what they've told. 2 days earlier, that's compared to control group. Similarly, there's a product called Plevira, which is again is an add-on treatment. The first one is a standalone treatment. So I've got two parts to the question. In the context of the inflammation reduction, which actually, if you look at the Coroquil Zinc product, there is no impact, statistically different impact in the inflammatory parameters. But there is a reduction in viral load. Now that could be a possible endpoint, but the conclusion of the paper is telling that it could reduce hospitalization length, which could all in itself be a favorable objective. So what I would want to tell, when the ITRC looks at something like this, right, we have come through a learning now. If today we were to define research goals for both the private sector, which is doing independent research, and the government sector, how would you redefine the goalposts, if you would at all? Like if you were to define a research objective in light of the last 14 months of experience, would you restate the objectives or would you continue the same way? Your thoughts, please.
No, I think we will have to do several mid-course corrections.
Yes, exactly.
This situation is evolving all the time, and we cannot freeze on anything. So we have to really address. We have to look at the new challenges and address them. As far as ITRC is concerned, I must tell you that ITRC consists of very eminent scientists. They are pharmacologists, they are clinicians, they are Irish people also. And they are very objectively and with free mind, open mind, looking at the data. So there is, I can tell you that there is no bias, because one of the major hurdle in all this, is bias. If your mind is biased, then you are not able to give correct evaluation or correct advice also. So this ITRC is really good, and I have seen that their recommendations are very objective. They really look into data, and also they do sometimes hand-holding. Not just work as a committee and just evaluate data. They also give very positive suggestions. So I know that several other products are also currently under the consideration and under the discussion. And in addition to ITRC, at the task force level, the committee which has been created for mentoring, because that was your another, you were talking about mentoring, so I'll cover that also. And mentor, because what happens is, see, you require a lot of support to be given, even to industry, to ensure that their clinical trial protocols are robust enough. And not only protocols, but the whole process is in line with good clinical practices. And based on my interaction, I can tell you that even big industries, genuinely they do some effort, but later on they come to know that these are the gaps, and that time it is too late. So early fixing the problem is best in the interest of everyone. So we extended. Earlier, we used to only interact with the institutions, which are involved. But then I had detailed discussions with the secretary, and he also agreed that we must extend our help to the industry also.
Yeah.
So we started mentoring industry as well, and I am happy to see many members of CII group, are part of this, and I have interacted with them. And we have evaluated their data. We have appointed mentor for helping them. I personally have interacted with some of them in such cases and told them that where are the gaps and how we can fulfill them. So we have to actually, in this situation, Rajiv ji, I feel that this differentiation of public and private, we have to forget,
Absolutely.
We have to remember people. What people need,
Yeah.
And we should do whatever best together, what people need, and not people only from India, because the world is looking at us. What can we give us, with our heritage, with our traditional knowledge systems, what India can offer. So there is a huge opportunity for all of us. And I'm sure you are aware that now the new clinical trials which are happening in UK, Dr. Geeta Krishnan has helped quite a lot in shaping them up. They are happening in collaboration with AIA and 3 prominent institutes in UK. So that kind of a data, they are working on obviously prophylaxis, but that's fine. But this kind of collaboration should increase now. Many other countries also, we should really bring them in this collaborative mode. And industry and CII can play immense role in the whole process. And I can see that you and the whole team is playing a positive role in this current scenario.
So I think this point of mentoring, I think is a fantastic initiative from the ministry and from your end, Dr. Bhushan. My sincere compliments and thanks. Now, in that context, how do we make it a little bit more widely known? So I think it will be good if we can, I'm just suggesting on the platform, that if we can make a clear note, who can be part of the mentoring program, what stage do they come in? Do they have to have a research, topic defined, the objectives, and there is a particular format in which they will propose for that initial mentoring itself, because there might be people with ideas. So if I can just propose, can we come out with a announcement to industry which says that through the ministry we can have a mentoring cell for research formally?
Yes, certainly. What I would suggest is if CII can take that role, and if CII do preliminary evaluation, because see, if we make a public announcement, Rajiv ji, then the responses which we get may be so large that it will be impossible for us to look into it. So some filters will have to be created.
My suggestion there, Bhushan ji, is that if we can define the criteria for selection, Abhinisho, CII can take up the role. CII will do the role. We'll need your assistance in putting your team's assistance, maybe even from the university.
Yeah, no, that also we should do together. I don't want to dictate on something that this is what, because we have to work together. We have to decide also together that what criteria should be there. Let's decide those criteria. To me, to come to the mentor level, one first criteria should be a serious interest and genuine intent to do something novel. Second, they should have some germ there, They should not just come that you mentor and we want to do everything. No, that is not. You should have done some basic work. Some proof of concept should be there with us, And that proof of concept should be evaluated by somebody like CII. Yes, there is some data. There is some genuine. Third, at what level? First, at the methodology level, if you want mentoring, then you should have done your own homework, because a lot of data is already available. Have you visited Equator Network? After doing all that, even if after doing all that, if you have genuine problem, then you can come to us and we can help. But without doing any homework, please don't come to us. So that is the third
my point would be, I completely agree, and I think this is a very useful, point that you make. And I think to instill this thing, the fact that, whether it's industry or government, no differentiation, but people need to do the homework. Now, the only thought which comes is that we, through CII, we can come back to you. We will take the lead in, announcing this and trying to get proposals. And then we need a body or a email ID to which we can submit these ideas for next level things. So we'll come back to you in due course on that part.
Okay? Yes, sure.
On how to take it forward. Now, I just want to get back to, because beyond COVID, there are other things, but one connected thing I want to say. If you look at most of the trials which have happened in modern medicine, even if they say HCQ or remdesivir or anything, they're part of a cocktail of drugs. They're very rarely, only one medicine being given. There are multiple medicines being given in a normal scenario. So in this context, when you look at a Ayurveda black box intervention, right? Classical medicines, diet, lifestyle, medicine, no therapies. But if you take just these three things together as one intervention, we don't see too many studies which have happened in that approach, right? Maybe there are one or two, I think, which may be right now going on. So any thoughts on the black box type of approach for Ayurveda research evidence in the COVID context to begin with?
No, absolutely, it is necessary, and in fact, um, many studies, I would say, in addition to giving just simple drug, they are looking at the whole. However, the documentation may not be that robust. They may not have taken it as part of the protocol, and here the mentoring is necessary. I feel that Ayurveda interventions, while developing the formulation and doing research on formulation is good, but we must remember that the whole Ayurveda intervention is based on this uh, uh, Hetu, Linga, and Aushadhi.
Right.
This kind of a triad we cannot forget. And we also some people may not agree with this, but initially, and I must tell you that I also was not really in favor of that. But we should not ignore the approach of Ayurveda to Chikitsa, which is Satvavajaya Chikitsa or Dvaivavakshasharet Chikitsa or Yukti. So today our focus is on only Yukti Chikitsa. The remaining two, which are also important, we are ignoring. And today, with psychology evolving so much, and the science of psychometrics also is evolving so much, and various tools are now available, not only the quality of life tools, but many different kinds of tools are now available. So we should be, and if they are not available, we should develop those tools, But just because there are no tools or we cannot measure, we should not ignore these important approaches in Ayurveda. We have done some work in this direction, to see the Chikitsa, which consists of primarily Shodhan and Shaman. How much of the serious intent goes into Shodhan and Shaman? And you will be surprised, I would divide this, not I would, generally Ayurvedic Chikitsa can be divided into physiological Chikitsa, pharmacological Chikitsa, and psychological Chikitsa, These are the three components, And remember that the pharmacological component, which relates to physical drug, is hardly, percentage-wise, it may differ, but it is in minority. The majority is in psychological and physiological domains. But our focus is more going in pharmacology. So you are very right that we should have black box approach in which pharmacological, physiological, and psychological intervention should be clubbed together. We should have a holistic view because that is the specialty of Ayurveda. While coming out with formulation for commercial reasons is important, but I feel that future is if we are able to come out with a commercial package which can be patented, protected intellectually, which consists of Shodhan, Shaman, Chikitsa, including physiological, pharmacological, and psychological as a package, it will be extremely useful and we will be able to give something very novel to the world. So on one side, it will also serve your business interest. On other side, it will also do justice to true Ayurvedic Chikitsa.
So I think those, let's call it those capsules of care or the black box capsules we want to do. I think it will be very good that those Chikitsa capsules, Dr. Dr. Bhushan, if from the highest level we start articulating that, because otherwise people may end up just there is a certain product, this is the two. I think the Ayurveda will like compared to all medicine in the world. Your finger, that which is a focus on is going more long lasting and safer. And that one size all approach can go away from that more. The next part, there is a EMR scheme modification which has happened recently. Now, the things put down scheme. Could you throw some tips you thought in terms of the EMR? Should industry and the latest opening up for medicine up?
No, I'm sorry, Rajiv ji, your voice was breaking in between. I don't know whether my connection is poor or there is some problem at your end, but I could hear you in bits and pieces. But
okay,
what I gather,
yeah.
I will just try to address that. You're asking about EMR. I am not the one who can really comment on that because these are the ministry schemes.
Okay. But ministry issue.
As an academician, as an academician, I can tell you that, and I have indicated this also to the ministry, that there is a need to take an entire review of existing modes of funding by Ministry of Ayush. And we must bring in the basic transparency and robustness of evaluation, peer evaluation, and so that the decisions regarding the public money funding happens in most optimal fashion without really creating any barriers, from where you are coming from, and the thing should get on merit. To some extent, other agencies have done it successfully. Ayush also, I'm sure, can do it in a due course of time. But in this process, I think you and me, both of us, will have to engage with the ministry. Not only two of us, but the community. I mean, you and me, because two of us are talking, but the community needs to get engaged in doing this.
Okay, going beyond COVID, Dr. Bhushan, if you were to look at research strategy over the last many years, not just 1.5 years, you've been talking about bringing in consort guidelines, and you've been relentlessly talking about a need for a different approach to Ayurveda research, going from reverse pharmacology about 10 years back, 15 years back, to the most recent writings. Now, when you look at products and services, right, when you go beyond COVID, we have, first of all, some focused diseases, if you were to work on some world-class evidence, right? And I think the ministry has also been focusing on that. I think recently there is some announcement or coming about some 1 or 2 diseases they want to focus on. But going beyond purely disease and outcomes and safety, would you like to comment on the need for investigating fundamental Ayurveda concepts, translational medicine, the history of Ayurveda? I mean, not just getting stuck on one aspect of Ayurveda, but research across all the dimensions. Would you like to comment on
that? Yes, I think while the product development approach, which is very attractive for industry as low-hanging fruit, because it is relatively easy to go in that. And now even nutraceuticals, I would say, it is relatively easy to go on that route, But in the long term, for a sustainable and more disruptive approach, I think will come through what you talked about, by taking a personalized approach, by bringing the real true strengths of Ayurveda on forefront, by giving new ideas to the field of medicine, and not only to the field of medicine, but to the field of health and wellness. Because I must tell you that even and as CII, you may be aware of that, but because this is CII forum, I wanted to mention this, at the highest level, and I'm interacting with some senior scientists from top industries globally, not only from India. But I can tell you globally, this awareness is becoming, and it is really palpable that business leaders in the world, maybe of top 10 pharma, they have realized that our approach to bring business and make profit based on people's agony is not going to be sustainable. So the sustainable development goals now, which everybody talks about, we have to draw a line between need and greed, and this understanding has come. So why our business model should be focused only on treatment? Why can't our business model are focused on health protection, disease prevention? And therefore, in the beginning, I told you this is not limited only to COVID, but the two drivers which I mentioned, they are cutting across most of the diseases, and they are inflammation and immunity. These are the focus areas we should take in hand. And the third one also I will mention, which is really important. That is insulin resistance. Because insulin resistance typically is not only limited to diabetes. Insulin resistance as a phenomena cuts across several other conditions which are underway, metabolic conditions, and world is really grappling. You may have seen that the rate of new drugs coming out is not only dropping, but many companies have actually closed down their shops for drug discovery for diseases like diabetes. Because today, with the understanding of metabolism, it is like sitting in fool's paradise and think that we will get some NCE as a magic bullet and we will cure diabetes. It is impossible. So for curing diabetes, you need this kind of a holistic black box approach,
including Shodhana Karma.
Yes, absolutely. And we have to actually work on that. Today, what is happening, Rajiv ji, that we have excellent pandits with us, They can articulate what is happening and what is there in Shastra. Now we have to bring them on board and actually convert that into some kind of a robust study protocols and showing by doing is only the way ahead. Nobody is going to listen to us just like that.
So, Dr. Bhushan, when we talked about today the regulatory obstacles to intervening in, let's say, mild, moderate COVID cases has been removed, let's say. We have the national institutes, we have some of the medical colleges which are there. Large number of patients are there, right? Now, whether it is COVID or you take diabetes for that matter, what is preventing us, and I use the word us, not you or anybody, us as a stakeholder community, from taking the top 3 Ayurveda medical colleges in the country or the institutes of 5 and come up with one protocol and do a proper Shodhana Karma, this thing, and establish this evidence? In 6 months' time, you'll have 1,000 patients or 500 patients with very clear data. So the black box approach we push through at the top institutes. We have all the patients.
Yeah, no, I think we should take that route definitely, because doing subcritical efforts at 100 places has not worked out. That is our past experience. Yeah. So we should really focus where strengths are, and all the strengths should be consolidated, brought together, forgetting all the differences in the best interest of people. And we should take some kind of a laudable goals, I think, Rajivji. For example, I'm just giving you one example that in next 5 years' time, we will give some kind of a solution to the world by which diabetes will be prevented. Because with Shatkriya Tal, if you are able to get first 2 stages, of progression towards diabetes, we have made wonder, And this is all very, very high impact research. It is not drug discovery or drug development. But industry also, if they come into such kind of a research, they are going in the direction of disruptive innovation. They will be dictating how market will go.
So, Dr. Bhushanji, I cannot but agree with you. And therefore, unless from the top, the policy makers and the thought leaders tell that the path for Ayurveda is, you talked about black box studies, encouraging areas in inflammation, then immunity, and you talked about metabolism, right? These 3, insulin resistance, right? So if these were taken as guiding posts and say within 3 years we have to do this, the funding which is currently going also can get redirected into some of these focus areas. And, the point about goals at scale without looking at that, So one connected comment here, Dr. Bhushan. I know, we are running against our clock, but such an important thing. I want to ask you 2 more questions on public health. Now, that's an area where whatever you just said is going to make it's relevant, because at a community health level, what you're looking at is things like these things only: underlying inflammation, chronic disease leading to chronic diseases, the Shatkriya Kal, catching it early, looking at insulin resistance amongst the poor as well. So when you look at the Ayush health and wellness centers, right, our research, again, I'm going back to the point, going beyond only the clinical trial with a product, new NCE or patent product. Can we look at No, you can't hear me.
No, sorry, I missed what you said after NCE and or beyond.
I just turned off my video for a minute so that. So, Dr. Bhushan, I think my question to you is, in the context of public health, all the things that you spoke of become relevant, which is inflammation, immunity, metabolism, right, insulin resistance, chronic disease. So, at a health management level, integrated community health management, we have large number of primary health centers which are Ayush based in the country. Any thoughts on how we can leverage that to go beyond typical research to look at community health outcomes as an aggregate?
Yeah, no, that is a very important point, because there are some notions, wrong notions in our minds, and we think that research meaning doing only clinical research or clinical trials is research. There is a huge evidence that can come through epidemiological research, and we are really not giving attention to epidemiological research, which will come through population-based studies. That documentation will become very, very important. You may be aware that WHO has supported a study with Ayush, and PHFI is involved, in which integration of Ayush into public health system for COVID is being studied, and we have identified various nodal centers, and there are coordinators from 10 different states, and it is in progress. But what is important is documentation, really documentation. And somehow our people are lacking in it. So we will have to develop capacity within our own sector, within our own community, and there has to be some kind of a inspiration which should be given to. I'll give you an example. Miss, that Ministry of Ayush has come out with clinical case registry.
Yes.
Now, over a month, Minister launched it, and it's an excellent platform. I was part of, and we tried to see that it is simple, it is not very complicated. So it is not very difficult to go there and deposit your data. But sadly, even after more than 1 month, today, if you visit, only 14 cases, out of which 7 are related to COVID and 7 are non-COVID. No, this is not acceptable. So if there are hundreds and hundreds of people talking about that we have treating COVID, we have managed COVID successfully, they may have done it, but don't stop there. Please share your experience, what you have done. You may not disclose your treatment, you may not disclose your medicine, but I like black box approach. Let people know what you have done. So this kind of a data. So if there are thousands of clinical trial or clinical case records in our repository, that becomes a evidence, But we have to do a lot of work in this direction.
So, in fact, we stand guilty that from our case, we have hundreds of case reports, very good, robust reports, which are not uploaded. We'll definitely do that, Dr. Bhushan. But coming back now, you talked about capacity building. So the root from the time that, can you hear me, Dr. Bhushan? I'll just remove my video.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was telling that if you look at BAMS and MD programs, right? Now, the culture of capturing data, because, robust data into my case intake forms, and then tracking the patient, that culture, if it is not built in early, or if we can build in early, let me put it on a positive note, if we build it in early, then there's a possibility it is sustained through life. So I know that we have a new NCISM and you would be part of the deliberation. Some of the program. Hear me, Dr. Bhushan? Can you hear me?
Yeah, there is some disturbance, but I can get it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know. So I just want to know from you, how do we make our MD theses and build that capacity building? Have you thought about this? Any feedback for everybody in general about how do we strengthen our academic research output?
Yeah, let me tell you that this MD, what you mentioned, it is not restricted only to Ayush. Modern medicine MD also, by and large, if you see what innovation is coming from that, there is no big success stories there as well. Or why MD, even PhD, So these have become mere compliance-based tools, and the real research, research should be for pleasure in search of truth, not to just get some degree. So somehow in our country, and therefore I said that this is not only for MD, this is for PhD, and not only for Ayush, but for all types of different sciences, including basic biological sciences as well. The compliance base. So I want to do a degree and for that purpose, I want to do some research. For that purpose, I have to publish something. I have to do some research. So currently, we are doing in this compliance mode. And so the big industry of predatory journals has emerged. So I can just pay money and get even my PhD, I can buy PhD. At UGC, when I was in UGC, we had to do criminal complaint in Delhi, in going in police complaint, against companies who were actually advertising and selling MD and PhD thesis with a rate card, So there are buyers, unfortunately. These companies thrive because there are buyers. So we have to really, they're a very difficult task to do, but this kind of a mindset change within our own people, it is very, very important. And it's a long drawn process, but we have started to some extent, by coming out with some regulations by UGC. Ministry of Ayush also has come out with a notification telling people that publishing in predatory journals will not add to anything. So whatever has happened in past has happened, but now at least in future, we will take some care of it. And research methodology, training in research methodology, is also important. Today, 3 years MD, and you get bright students there. But frankly, when I interacted with MD students, their experience of doing MD was not very good. And this is reality. And I think people at the top now, I hope that Jain ji, Dev Pujari ji has been now chairperson in that. He will make that change. So BA, or other graduate, medical graduate, and medical postgraduate, there is hardly any difference. And if at all there is difference, there is erosion of innovation, and there is erosion of inquisitiveness as you climb up the educational chain. This is so unfortunate. We have to change.
I had one question to come. What can industries do differently and more was my question. You have answered that partially earlier when you talked about no difference between government and industry. This is a joint, program. This is a joint goal. You've been most thought-provoking, Bhushanji. You wanted to say something more? Please complete your thoughts.
No, you provoked me actually when you are talking about that, industry. See, I think that, and again, I'm saying not only Ayush industry. In general, health industry in India is not that imaginative. I'm sorry to say that. It is not that imaginative. And we have tendency to go imaginative as well as innovative, because we are not ready to even come out of our own shell. We want to have more and more protections to continue to do. I think that when we are talking about health, we cannot say that this is Ayush health and this is allopathic health. So, and no compromise at any level regarding safety and quality. And I think that even our own pharmacopoeia, Ayurvedic pharmacopoeia of India, it was prepared
Yes.
some decades ago. It needs a revisit, serious revisit, and without even waiting for government coming out with pharmacopoeia, Rajiv ji, I think industry body should come out with your own standards and with your own pharmacopoeia. Like American Pharmacopoeia. It is not a governmental initiative, but you look at the quality of monographs of, say,
Yeah.
Triphala in American Ayurvedic Pharmacopoeia. It is far superior. So let industry come out with this. But I think we should stop giving some kind of a reasons to continue to do what we are doing. The kind of irrational formulations which are coming in market with poor quality, and people taking advantage of it. You
Yes.
can't imagine, simple and powerful drug like Guduchi getting defamed. I was so pained, but
Yes.
when you do so, how are you ensuring that you are using the correct Guduchi in your own formulations? What is the
I have one
mechanism
comment
for
here. I got the point. So, Dr. Bhushan, I'm going back to that thing, right? So you look at ITRC itself, right? You look at ITRC and the approvals going. Should we also, in the interest of being cautionary, right, we ensure that the claims that are made on a given study are also published as part of the study, that this study allows me to claim something on my product to this extent. So the ITRC also reviewing the claim which is made, because often what is happening is in the press releases which come out, there is a ant and there is a elephant which is presented, right? So unless we are able to bring some rationality into those claims is one part. Otherwise, these problems would also continue, because the right medicine for the wrong person can also cause a problem. But I want to go back. The Ayurveda Pharmacopoeia, the ICMR has done the 22nd review of medicinal plans, 600 plans covered. They are doing on their own. There is an Ayush Pharmacopoeia committee. So these are all working in parallel, right? There is no alignment coming between on the pharmacopoeia part. What should be done on the product side? I'm telling medicinal plans, pharmacopoeia.
No, as I told you,
monograph side.
no. As I told you, the improvement in the statutory pharmacopoeia will go on, and we should all work for it. But in addition to that, parallelly, we should do something as a self-regulatory exercise. And like capacity building or like awareness, I talked to you about predatory journals in the academia. The predatory practices in industry also need to be curbed.
Yeah. But that, understand. Yeah. So that is a controversial topic.
The ethics, I would say, ethics is everywhere. Business ethics, I am sure CII puts it at the top, So we should not compromise on certain basic ethical principles, when it comes to business. And in long term, it is good for everyone, Short term, maybe people like even in academia, short term, I feel happy that I paid the 2,000 rupees and publish one article, and get my PhD done. But in long term, I ask my student that only criteria for PhD is you should be proud to face mirror by holding that thesis in your hand. That's it. Because you can't fool yourself, You can fool university, you can fool regulator, you can fool UGC, everybody.
Wonderful. One last question, Dr. Bhushan. You went from Pune, where you're doing extraordinary work. You went to Delhi, extraordinary work as Vice Chairman UGC. Now you're back as National Research Professor for Ayush. What really is your immediate, next 1 year vision and 1 year goals and, objectives for yourself?
Yeah,
and the work that you lead?
A good question. Majority of my time I'm giving for these ongoing COVID activities. So all these studies which we talked about, over 100 studies, I am personally monitoring them. I am personally assigning mentors. I am personally interacting. So it's a huge work which goes. So that we will go. Second, I want to do is capacity building. So I'm interacting with institutions. I've already interacted with 2 or 3 good industries who are members of your forum,
Yes.
And this I'm doing it on my own. I mean, nobody is telling me to do this, and I feel that wherever possible, this kind of a capacity building, creating awareness, giving them support for good cause is my responsibility as a citizen. So
Yes.
I will continue to do that during next year as well. And as National Research Professor in Ayush, obviously, my focus will be in Ayush. Although my other research continues, my main activities will be in Ayush. So capacity building, strengthening research, coming out with new research methodology, strengthening the documentation, and increasing the levels of evidence within our own community, by and large, will be my mandate for next year.
So, Dr. Bhushan, I've taken note of all the important suggestions you have made. I'm not going to restate it because I'm sure between us it's very clear what you've told. I've written it down and we'll definitely come back to you on this. But I would like to thank you sincerely for a most stimulating conversation and dialogue. And you've been extremely thought-provoking in not only talking about the past, but the present and the future. Our best wishes are always with you, and we look forward to working from CII with you, Dr. Bhushan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Namaskar, and all the best to CII Forum. See you.
Thank you. Take care. Yeah.